Hey guys, what's going on, and welcome to another video here on Philly Sports Network. Usually it's time for This Week in Philadelphia Sports, but there just aren't many sports happening right now, and there's something I want to take the time to talk about, and I feel like I had a lot of fun with that Jalen Hurts video last week where it was just raw, like it's just me talking to you guys about maybe a problem or a situation with the Eagles. And there's one that's been on my mind brewing for at least a few weeks now, and especially after yesterday, I kind of can't ignore it. Like, it's becoming very rapidly the elephant in the room, and I wanted to just kind of vent my ideas, hear what you guys had to say, and generate a discussion before it catches on like wildfire, because there's no doubt that this is going to, especially as we get in towards the offseason. I think the Eagles are going to have a slight problem, and by slight, I mean a big problem, at left tackle when we get to the end of the season, especially if things carry on as they are now, purely because they're going to be at a crossroads, and it's not one that many people expected they would be at the very start of the season. You know, Andre Dillard was down, his season was done, he'd had a bit of a worrying training camp, there was some off-the-field stuff where there were some scraps, what looked to be during a practice, and then we see whatever the hell happened at left tackle in the meantime with Jason Peters, and the emergence of Jordan Mylata, who has become, in my opinion, arguably the player with the most upside on this entire Eagles team. What a surprise he has been this year. And he has absolutely made his case to be the full-time starter at left tackle. You can't really take that away from him. The guy got benched for Jason Peters for some reason, comes back like a week later in the third quarter when Peters is predictably terrible, and balls out. We see it again last night against the Saints defense. That rampant pass rush should have been bullying offensive lines all day. Mylata didn't give up a single sack. The offensive line didn't give up a single sack. And while much of that may be down to the athleticism of Jalen Hurts, Mylata did a brilliant job at that left tackle spot, just as he's done a brilliant job all season long. Now, the trouble we're going to have is that the Eagles this offseason are going to have to decide, well, is it still Andre Dillard's spot, or are they going to move it to Jordan Mylata? And each one is going to come with a consequence, because the Eagles, as we know, have a loyalty problem. And a lot of times that loyalty problem seems to stem from monetary value, whether it's contract or a draft stock invested in them, whatever it may be. Age, they can't let go for what's best for the team. Emotions get in the way. They cloud the judgment. We've seen that time and time again. Jason Peters is probably the most notable example. Alshon Jeffrey is another example. There have been several other players that you just wonder, why are they in a starting role? Like, what is the deal there? Why are they still on this team when other players who arguably have more upside, more potential, aren't getting snaps, and they cost a lot less? So the problem the Eagles have with Andre Dillard is that he was a first-round pick. He'll be going into year 3 of his rookie contract with a cap hit of close to $3.5 million. He's still, of course, then got another year and a 5th-year option. That's fine. The problem is, he's already gone through a few bumps and bruises. His rookie season was relatively impressive. He held his own against the Bills and then the Bears, and then he got randomly moved to right tackle for no reason. That shattered his confidence, and then we end up here where he's been injured. He's now 25 years old. This isn't a young draft pick. You look at someone like Josh Sweat, who's now in his 3rd year in the league, and is still younger than that, and you can see the difference there in terms of upside. Now, Mylata is also in his 3rd year of contract, but he only cost the team $697,000 next season. So whether the team re-sign him this year, I think they should, given that they're only going to have one more year after that. Like, get in nice and early. The upside is very, very clear. He's not exactly going to regress. Well, I say that, it's the Eagles. I think it would make more sense for them to pay Mylata this year. The question is, though, how much? Because realistically, this team loves its tackle depth. It loves offensive linemen, and they don't have any depth this year. Jack Driscoll is your lead backup on the right-hand side behind Lane Johnson. You do have Prince Tega Vanago, but he's obviously quite some way back in terms of development in comparison to Jordan Mylata. Now, if you bench Andre Dillard for Mylata, or maybe you phrase it under a training camp battle or what have you, that if Mylata wins that role, that is a wasted first-round pick. Well, for the crowd that despise Howie Roseman or are really against the amount of flawed draft picks that they've been. I mean, for context, okay, that 2019 draft, if we're prepared to admit that Jordan Mylata is your starting left tackle, Andre Dillard, who's now benched, Miles Sanders, who's taken a while to get going because Doug doesn't use him properly, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Sharif Miller, and Clayton Thorson.
Clayton Thorson! Da, 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 da. Clayton Dawson!
Who, look, I understand Clayton Dawson's a legend of this channel. As a draft pick, probably a bit less successful. But that is a wasted draft class in nearly every sense of the word, aside from 1.5 players, essentially. It's not good enough. And Howie Roseman is going to be aware of that. That if you pull Andre Dillard away, if you start Jordan Mylata, it looks bad. It reflects poorly on the talent evaluation team. It reflects poorly on the GM, on the coaches, that your first round pick, your guy, your left tackle, who you moved up 3 spots to get. You traded up with the Baltimore Ravens to get Andre Dillard. If he is not ready to start by year 3, that's not good enough. That is not good enough. Now the question then becomes, well, do you trade him? Do you cut? Obviously, I think cutting's out the window, but do you trade him? If you do trade him, do you have tackle depth behind? Are you going to lean on Jack Driscoll to step up and be as good, if not better, than what we'd seen from Andre Dillard? So far on the right-hand side, he's not looking too bad. He's certainly holding his own. That game experience is absolutely coming in key. We do have Prince Tega Wannigo again as well. There is the potential they move on from Andre Dillard. But again, that concedes the fact that it was a poor pick and it's been a poor draft. And if the Eagles do seem to dive off a cliff, which they've very almost done a few times this year, won't sit well. The other alternative is that you move Andre Dillard inside and you move him to guard. Now, the problem with that is that his strengths are his agility and his footwork, and his shortcomings are a lack of power and a short wingspan. Now, a short wingspan might help him at guard, but he doesn't have room to use that footwork to explode out of his kick step. He's sandwiched between 2 players. It's very much more, can you beat the guy in front of you? Can you get up and under and stop them driving? Can you counter those pass rushing moves? And that isn't going to sit well for a player that does lack power as a tackle. He makes his payday as an agile pass protector, as an agile run blocker. You're not going to get that as much from the guard position. You've already got Sayamalo on one side. Maybe the other guard position could be up in the air. I don't know. But I think the chances of him moving to guard are slim, being traded are much higher. But is the most likely option that the team start Andre Dillard and stagnate Jordan Mylata? Do they start Andre Dillard? Someone that they have invested a first round pick in, that they did trade up for, and go, nope, that's still our guy, that's the guy we've invested in, and we will not be told otherwise, and risk stagnating the most exciting player on the entire roster. That's where they're at, because if Jordan Mylata continues on this road, continues to just drive home nothing but fairy tales and excellent progress, then it doesn't make sense. Like, Mylata is making such a convincing argument right now that he should be the team's starting left tackle in 2021. He's holding his own against every single pass rusher he comes up against. And if the Eagles do not buy into that, and they do put Andre Dillard in front of him, it is gross mismanagement on every level. In my opinion, that's too far. They've done it with Jason Peters. They've done it with Alshon Jeffrey and keeping him on the roster despite the fact he wasn't even healthy. They've done it with arguably Deshaun Jackson. It's too far. It's one step too far to see Andre Dillard go back over Jordan Mylata. The question is, what do they do with Andre Dillard? Do they just take the L, say he's now a backup tackle? Do they let them fight in training camp? Do they move him to guard? Or do they get him out of the building? What do you guys think? I want to know. Let me down in the comments section below. From myself, Liam Jenkins, I hope you've enjoyed this kind of video. If you do like them, I'll definitely do a lot more. I promise you they're a lot easier to edit when it's just like one take of me talking. Thank you for all of the support this year, guys. We will have some little soppy content towards the end of the year brewing. Take it easy, enjoy the rest of your Victory Monday, and I'll see you soon.